Are we going to talk about the fact that Reinhard finally draws his dragon sword for the first time in the series, and he proceeds to absolutely stomp Theresia? He absolutely disrespects her. The sword gets right next to his neck, then he just instantly moves and just slashes her in two. Absolute aura farmer. He disrespected his opponent so hard. ReZero just had one of the most emotional episodes of all time, and I'm pretty sure all of you can agree with me on it. The entire episode was focused about the Astria family, and it's actually quite nice to get all of these generations of characters interacting. Now, if you read the manga, you would know that Theresia was always alive, and the culmination of the battle between Wilhelm and Theresia is finally here. The reason why Wilhelm is absolutely getting bodied by Theresia is because he's a lot older, and Theresia currently is in the prime of her life. Now, she is technically a bit weaker than she usually is, because she's of course a reanimated corpse, but she has essentially most of her strength, whereas Wilhelm is obviously a lot older and more susceptible to damage. Now, we do see that Wilhelm does get dog-walked by Theresia, but Reinhard comes in to save the day. Now, of course, Heinkel does come in and sort of distract Wilhelm, which does open him up for an attack. And I know most ReZero fans, especially if you're anime only, you will absolutely despise Heinkel. But Heinkel is actually one of the best characters in the series. It's really hard to explain, and if you're anime only, you probably won't be able to see it, but he's actually an amazing character. We learn about Theresia's backstory. Theresia never wanted to wield the sword, she just preferred flowers, and so when she was sent on these fights in the Demi-Human War, she never partook, and eventually this, I guess, ineptitude got her entire family killed, and she of course had to then wield the sword. Now, what is not mentioned is the idea that Theresia can hear a voice, and this voice is like this laughter, and this laughter is attributed to the sword god. So it's sort of theorized that the sword god is who chooses who becomes the sword saint, and Theresia was chosen by the sword god to become the sword saint. And we see that during this entire time where she's sort of on her own and depressed, she can sort of hear this laughing of the sword god goading her and sort of torturing her mentally, and that is unfortunately something which is not really explored in the anime. We then get the backstory of Theresia finally going out to fight the White Well, and this is what's so amazing about ReZero. We're seeing the culmination of so many different points in the story. We're seeing the White Well, we're seeing Pandora, we're seeing Heinkel being the person that sort of gets Theresia to go on the White Well hunt, okay, and Theresia mentions that the royal child was kidnapped, which is of course alluding to, theoretically, Felt, who's of course now the royal candidate that Reinhard is now working under. So we can see so many different plot points come together in this one backstory scene. Now, of course, I'm going to talk about Pandora in a bit, of course, but it's just to show that so many different plot threads are coming together, especially considering we saw Pandora in Emilia's past as well. So we can see a sort of theme of Pandora influencing the story, not only ruining Theresia's life and Wilhelm's life, but also ruining Emilia's life as well. So there seems to be a consistent trend there. We see Theresia confront the White Well, and we see that Pandora is actually behind this attack. Now, we do know this from Season 1 and also Season 2, this idea that Pandora can sort of control the White Well and these giant great beasts. Again, Theresia does slash Pandora, but then she sort of gets crushed and she drops to the floor like a puppet, almost like her strings were cut, like she's a sort of actor in a play. She just gets defeated instantly, despite being extremely strong. You see that she does try and pull out the sword reed, but the sword doesn't come out, and the reason for that is because she's no longer the sword saint, and the sword saint divine blessing is what allows you to use the dragon sword reed, and so that's the reason why she couldn't pull it out. And also, by the way, she may not have been able to pull it out if Pandora was not worthy anyway. Now, after Theresia was dealt a fatal blow by Reinhard, we see that she sort of came to her senses. She was able to sort of talk, and we see that Wilhelm finally said the words he couldn't say to her. If you remember back in season 1 when they killed the White Whale, when Wilhelm did the kill blow on the White Whale, he did say, "I love you, Theresia," and now he finally got to say it to her face. So that sort of story thread has come to an end. Now this is where things go a bit dicey. And by the way, we saw this with Kurgan. When Kurgan died, he said "magnificent" to Garfiel, which sort of showed that he came to his senses as well. So the main issue comes from the fact that Theresia sort of came to her senses, and everyone knows that it was sort of Theresia speaking. So when Heinkel, who by the way is Reinhard's father, asks Reinhard like, why did he do that? He just killed his grandmother. And Reinhard's like, no, I didn't. That was just a corpse. It was reanimated by an enemy's technique. That wasn't our grandmother. And this of course pisses off Heinkel, and it also pisses off Wilhelm. But what's really interesting to know is that what Reinhard is saying here could be seen as the truth, because Tappe has said that if you saw the world from Reinhard's perspective, it would be a spoiler in itself. So maybe it's true with what Reinhard is seeing. Maybe that was a corpse and that was never Theresia. Maybe it was just a fake persona sort of imbued onto Theresia, and Theresia died years and years ago, and that wasn't actually Theresia but some cheap imitation. So it's kind of weird to see that, because if you're anime only and you're watching that, you would see that that must be Theresia. She's crying, she says "I love you" to Wilhelm, that must be Theresia. But Reinhard, who is like the objective character in the series, who can't be tricked, he can't be dissuaded, nothing can happen, he literally says, no, that's a fake. That isn't Theresia. That is a corpse that was brought about by a secret art. We then get the saddest bit when Wilhelm says, do you regret what you did? Do you have any regret in your heart about what you did, killing your grandmother? And Reinhard says, no, I don't regret anything because what I did was right. And you'll notice that the way Wilhelm then speaks to Reinhard is he doesn't speak to him in the same way. He speaks to him in a more formal way, which shows that Wilhelm and Reinhard's, I guess, relationship has been truly severed. Wilhelm doesn't really see Reinhard as his grandson anymore. It's just a pure destruction of their relationship. And of course, no one really understands why is Reinhard so adamant. Why does he have no tinge of regret? And again, it's the tragedy of the Astria family. So most people see Subaru as the person that always gets the short end of the stick. But the Reinhard and the Astria family, they do have a lot of tragedy in their lives also.